In the aftermath of World War II, the global stage was set for smaller nations, once sidelined in international affairs, to assert their independence and sovereignty. For the Philippines, a nation defined by its geographic isolation, yet abundant maritime wealth. This newfound independence became a delicate balance, navigating relationships with global powers, upholding international law, and protecting its vast maritime resources. But in recent years, as China's influence has grown, that balance has been disrupted, requiring Manila to act with renewed urgency. On Friday, President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. made a historic move, signing two crucial pieces of legislation: the Philippine Maritime Zones Act and the Philippine Archipelagic Sea Lanes Act. These laws, while deeply rooted in the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, are far more than legal measures. They signal the Philippines' defiant stand in a region where China's dominance has frequently infringed on the sovereignty of smaller nations. By establishing clearer maritime boundaries and outlining strict guidelines for foreign passage, the Philippines aims to fortify its control over its own waters, an act that, while defensive, is also a bold challenge to Beijing's long-standing claims.
The Philippine Maritime Zones Act and the Philippines Archipelagic Sea Lanes Act. With these pieces of legislation, we align our domestic laws with international law, specifically the UN Convention on the Law of the Seas, or UNCLOS, to improve our capacity for governance and reinforce our maritime policies for economic development and for national security.
In essence, these laws represent Manila's high-stakes strategy of hard balancing against a larger, increasingly aggressive neighbor. More than an assertion of sovereignty, this move aligns the Philippines with other nations striving to uphold a rules-based order in the South China Sea. This strategic balancing act isn't just about securing Filipino waters, but about safeguarding a global principle that smaller nations, too, have rights worth defending. The Philippine Maritime Zones Act, now Republic Act number 12064, is more than a simple declaration of maritime boundaries. It encapsulates the Philippines' rights over its waters, from internal and archipelagic to its exclusive economic zone and continental shelf. These zones are delineated in accordance with the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which the Philippines has long championed as a basis for maritime rights and governance. It provides not only for the control of marine resources within the Philippines' 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone, but also sets a foundation for asserting sovereignty in a region where such control has historically been tested. For decades, the South China Sea has been a flashpoint, with China claiming nearly the entire body of water as its own through the ambiguous 9-dash line. Despite a landmark 2016 ruling from the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague that invalidated China's sweeping claims, Beijing has maintained its stance, often using military might to back it up. Complementing the Maritime Zones Act is the Philippine Archipelagic Sea Lanes Act. This legislation establishes specific pathways through which foreign vessels and aircraft may pass. By setting designated lanes, the Philippines can manage the flow of foreign military and civilian traffic while ensuring that its sovereignty is respected. For foreign military vessels, this is no small constraint. It reduces the risk of encroachment on sensitive areas, diminishing China's ability to operate with impunity near Philippine shores. This law is also a statement of Manila's insistence on following international norms, including the Chicago Convention and UNCLOS, which promote safe and regulated passage. President Marcos emphasized that the routes provide continuous, expeditious, and unobstructed transit without compromising national security.
The designated archipelagic sea lanes and air routes aim to facilitate safe passage for foreign ships and aircraft without compromising our national security. nor diminishing our capacity for good environmental stewardship. These sea lanes will offer continuous, expeditious, and unobstructed transit for vessels and air transport. It is my fervent hope that with the help of these two laws, we will continue to pursue and defend our maritime interests and navigate towards a brighter and stronger Bagong Pilipinas.
It's a clear message that the Philippines, while upholding international norms, will not sacrifice its own security interests for the convenience of foreign powers. In international relations, hard balancing typically involves forming alliances, expanding military capabilities, or adopting policies that deter aggressors through clear enforceable boundaries. For a state like the Philippines, surrounded by larger and more powerful nations, such balancing is a necessary survival strategy. By defining its maritime zones and controlling archipelagic passage, the Philippines is setting boundaries not just geographically, but diplomatically, making it clear that incursions will not go unchecked. For Manila, this high-stakes balancing act is a tightrope. China has proven willing to respond assertively when its interests in the South China Sea are threatened, often using economic leverage to exert control. However, by taking a principled stand in alignment with UNCLOS, the Philippines reinforces its commitment to international law, an approach likely to gain the support of other nations wary of China's expansionism. In the wake of World War II, newly independent states faced the challenge of navigating an international order shaped by Cold War tensions. Many of these nations, including the Philippines, grappled with the influence of superpowers while attempting to assert their sovereignty. Today, the dynamic is strikingly similar. While the Cold War is over, the struggle of smaller states to maintain autonomy amid larger powers remains. Just as the Philippines sought to define itself in a post-colonial era, it now seeks to define its position in a region shaped by China's aspirations for regional dominance. China's growing influence in Southeast Asia has brought the Philippines once again to the fore of a sovereignty struggle. But this time, the Philippines' allies are less certain and more distant. The United States has remained a supportive partner, yet Manila has had to rethink the limits of this alliance. Recent moves by the Marcos administration signal a pragmatic shift, building a rules-based order, not by relying on any single partner, but by establishing its own rights under international law. The Philippines' assertive actions send a ripple through Southeast Asia. Other ASEAN nations with overlapping claims in the South China Sea, such as Vietnam and Malaysia, face similar challenges with China's ambitions. By codifying its maritime boundaries, the Philippines provides a model for regional neighbors who may be emboldened to adopt similar measures. The Philippines' approach also aligns with Japan, Australia, and other Indo-Pacific allies, who seek to counterbalance China's influence. By formalizing its adherence to UNCLOS, Manila strengthens regional frameworks that could lead to collective action, reinforcing a rules-based maritime order in the face of China's overt disregard. The Philippines' high-stakes balancing strategy in the South China Sea is not just a matter of legal formalities. It's a testament to the resilience of a nation that refuses to be overpowered. By asserting its maritime rights through these newly enacted laws, the Philippines is setting a precedent in Southeast Asia, showing that small nations can exercise agency and autonomy even in a region dominated by a larger power. China's economic clout and assertiveness pose undeniable challenges. But the Philippines has chosen to counter these challenges, not with retaliation, but with legislation rooted in international norms. This approach not only strengthens the Philippines' position, but also bolsters the region's collective resistance to coercion. With the Philippine Maritime Zones Act and the Philippine Archipelagic Sea Lanes Act, the Philippines affirms its maritime sovereignty, and in doing so, reaffirms a universal principle that all nations, regardless of size, deserve to exercise their rights freely. In the eyes of the international community, this is a commendable step, a beacon of resilience in a sea marked by volatility and tension.